everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and it's time to talk about AEW Dynamite. This was the episode where Cody would receive his 10 lashes from MJF, but that wouldn't be until the very end of the show. And we're going to look at the whole show as a whole. But how good was the show as a whole? There's only one way to find out, and that's by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. We start things off with a singles match, Jon Moxley taking on Ortiz, a carryover from the segment last week where Moxley driggity dropped Ortiz on the ramp with a lovely paradigm shift, before then getting into a brawl with like nine other guys. This week's edition of Dynamite comes from Huntsville, Alabama. I don't know anything about Huntsville, Alabama, but as we pan towards the entranceway for one of the entrances, we see a sign that says MJF listens to Coldplay. Just a great start from Huntsville, Alabama. Well done everyone. Before the match gets underway, the rest of the Inner Circle arrive and Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara join commentary. Moxley obviously overpowers Ortiz at the start. No offense, Ortiz, please don't harm me or my family. But he manages to stay in the match due to a combination of sneaky heel tactics and also Santana occasionally getting involved from the outside. Moxley kind of takes steps to nullify this. Accidental steps, I think. He does a big suicide dive, aiming for Ortiz on the outside, but just takes out Santana instead. It might have been deliberate. Who knows? It's Jon Moxley, isn't it? A little later on, Moxley goes for the paradigm shift, but Ortiz manages to slip out, but Moxley instead clocks him with a big lariat or a sling blade or whatever you want to call it, according to Jim Ross. It's not a sling blade, it wasn't a sling blade at all. Sensing that the end is near for his tag team partner, Santana jumps up on the apron to try and help out, but Ortiz accidentally runs into him, knocking him off the apron, and then turns back around into a paradigm shift to give Moxley the big victory. Straight away after the bell, Moxley has a stare down with Jericho on commentary, and because Jericho's still got his headset on, we actually get to hear what wrestlers say sometimes when they're just jawing at each other wordlessly because there's no mics. But this time, we do hear what Jericho says, and what he says is, "You're going downtown to Chinatown, daddy," which is like one of the top 5 best things I've ever heard in my life. It's all a distraction, however, as Santana gets in the ring and blindsides Moxley, but it really doesn't go well for him. Moxley manages to incapacitate Santana and then stabs him in the eye with the Ford GT car keys, the car that Jericho offered him to join the Inner Circle. Moxley bails as the Inner Circle run down to check on Santana, and I'm going to give this opening segment / match an A- grade. I thought that the match itself was like a B or a B+ quality, but the strength of this segment was very much in the post-match shenanigans. Commentary really sold it well too. They weren't cheering on Moxley for getting his own back, an eye for an eye and all that sort of thing. Instead, they were saying, wow, that's actually pretty bad. 2 wrongs don't make a right. It added a nice shade of grey, a nice streak of menace to Moxley's character, which often we can be guilty of forgetting about just because he's such a charismatic and very often funny guy. Next up, tag team action as SCU, without Christopher Daniels with them at ringside, take on the Best Friends with Orange Cassidy with them on the outside. There's really nice stuff at the start with a big exchange of chops between Kaz and Trent. Then it turns into a bit of a more frantic double team kind of effort, and eventually all 4 guys are just on the outside of the ring blasting each other with big move after big move, and all 4 men are down on the floor. So of course, Orange Cassidy just walks over very lazily, sees everyone having a nap, and decides to join them and just lies down himself. And that's our Orange Cassidy spot of the night. And of course, as always, it's really nicely and well received by the crowd. Towards the end of the match, the Best Friends are just running wild with big sequences of strikes and running knees and everything, and also hugs, just generally being fueled by the power of just being best friends. Isn't that all we ask in life? They set up Kazarian for the Strong Zero, the big finishing move, but Scorpio Sky is on hand to stop it. He yanks Chuck Taylor off the apron, gets in the ring, and dropkicks Trent, which flips the hold over into kind of an improvised Yoshi Tonic, and that's enough to get the pinfall for SCU. But like the previous match, it's not over yet, as the Dark Order rush the ring and attack both teams after the bell. They beat down all 4 guys with the numbers advantage, so brave, cute little brave boy Orange Cassidy rolls in the ring to stare them down, and they offer him a mask. They're like, join the Dark Order, and Cassidy goes, oh no, and puts his hands in his pockets to a huge pop, of course. So they beat down Orange Cassidy for a little bit, and then Christopher Daniels, who wasn't there at ringside with SCU, runs out in street attire, gets in the ring, and the Dark Order just back away. They don't touch him, deliberately so, because of course they want to recruit him, and I'm really enjoying I'm really enjoying the mystery of where this storyline is going to go. This gets a B+. The match was good, and the post-match stuff was entertaining too. I think collectively as fans, we may have developed a bit of a tolerance to the Dark Order's weird shenanigans. Maybe it's improved. Maybe the writing's improved over the past month or so, or maybe they're just better compared to the Nightmare Collective. Who knows? But I did enjoy this, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Next up, get very excited right now, because it's the return of Yuka Sakazaki taking on Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. But when Sakazaki makes her entrance, she doesn't have her original music. No, that was the whole entire point. That's what we wanted. Yes, she's a great wrestler and stuff, but we wanted that theme tune. We wanted that catchy, ridiculous theme music, and it was taken away from us. The story of this match is that Baker is trying to ground Sakazaki with submissions and strikes and just generally slow the pace of the match, but she can't keep her down because Sakazaki just loves jumping off the top rope. That's very much her character is. She might be a genie, loves jumping off the top rope, and happy. Those are her 3 character traits, I believe. If anyone can think of any more, pop them in the comments section down below. Eventually, Britt Baker gets Lockjaw locked in, or almost does. She's got her on the floor, she's got the whole body position in place, but instead of grabbing the jaw and the mouth, she grabs her hair instead, and that's enough to allow Yuka to actually escape, flip her over into a pinning predicament, and pick up a massive victory on her return to AEW. And her music plays at the end, her different music, the good one plays at the end. So either there was a mistake at the start, or it was just to pop the crowd later on. I don't know, but her music's back, it turns out, which is nice. I also tried to do a bit of digging on Twitter last night to find out basically why on earth Yuka Sakazaki got pushed down by Riho, Honorable Riho, at Fyter Fest. I might be the only person who still remembers this, but I tweeted Sean Ross Sapp asking him, I said, why did Riho shove Yuka when they're both baby faces all those months ago last summer? And he replied with this. Sean Ross Sapp said that earlier in the day, the pair had gone go-kart racing and Riho had cheated. So that's the end of that one. I get all the scoops. Don't worry, don't you worry, everybody. I'm on the ball. But it's not over yet, like the previous 2 segments. There's a bit of afters after the bell. In fact, with the bell, Britt Baker gets the ring bell and clocks Yuka Sakazaki in the back with it. And then, because Aubrey Edwards, the referee, takes the bell away, she just puts Yuka's face, her mouth, over the bottom rope as if she's going to curb stomp her, and then does. She just does. She just plants a foot right in her back or in the back of her head, can't remember which, and it's really disturbing. It's disturbing because Yuka starts bleeding from the mouth, she spits a tooth into her hands, this strike has really messed her up, it's knocked at least one tooth out, and it's really effective because Britt Baker's a dentist, she's a dentist, mouth, teeth. I'm surprised it took this long. She also clamps on the lockjaw for good measure, and I thought it was pretty great. This gets a B+ grade. It was a really short match for such a high grade, but it was good for what it was. The post-match stuff was really entertaining, and the result was a surprise too, and it was a good one. It was nice to see Sakazaki back in AEW and picking up a big victory. Next up, 8-man tag team action as the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Bucks and Hangman Page take on the Butcher, the Blade, Pentagon and Phoenix. And it's another installment in that great storyline that's going on at the moment of Hangman Page just becoming isolated and angry and bitter and keeping himself deliberately away from his friends. Like during the entrance, they're all doing their elite stuff on the top of the ramp during their entrance, there's all the dollar bills floating around and everything, and Hangman just walks straight to the ring. In the early stages, the babyfaces are in control, they knock all their opponents to the outside, and the Bucks and Omega do like a triple pescado over, 3 sides of the ring simultaneously, while Hangman doesn't join in. He's just chilling on the apron. It's little things like this that have all built up and have made this storyline so compelling. But eventually it's Paige's turn. He gets the hot tag, and it's a really hot tag. It might be the hot tag of 2020 so far, guys. If you can think of a better one, also pop that in the comments section down below. But no, he gets in the ring and he's just taking out everybody. He's all over the place. He's in the ring, he's on the apron, he's to the outside, he's doing a massive moonsault off the top rope. It reminded me of that gif of Cesaro that crops up now and again, of him just running wild with springboards and strikes and everything. That's what Hangman was doing here, and it was excellent. But he goes a little bit too far, runs out of steam a little bit, and then the heels regain control. The Butcher hits Nick Jackson with a big powerbomb, 1, 2, and the referee stops his count, because the spot that they were going to do hasn't happened yet, and he can't end the match there. Oh, it's another example of one of those little timing issues in tag team matches in AEW, which they had managed to stamp out quite a lot in recent times, but it's another one cropping up again. What was supposed to happen, and what does happen, but it should have happened earlier, is that Matt Jackson goes to break up the pinfall, but Pentagon steps on the Butcher's back and hits him with a destroyer to the other side of the ring while the pinfall is happening. But the referee stopped his count, and then the Butcher just picked Nick Jackson up anyway out of the pinfall and hit him with another move. So Yeah, that one was a bit uncomfortable to watch, really. But it was an ugly spot in a match that was otherwise very entertaining and very good in terms of storytelling. Another example is right towards the end when Hangman Page is the legal man, but he's knackered. His leg's hurting. He needs to tag out. He refuses to tag out because it's just the Bucks on the apron. Maybe he'd have tagged out to Kenny Omega. Were he there? I don't know. But he turns around anyway, and the Lucha Bros take him out and pick up the victory. But like the previous 3 matches, it's not over yet, because, well, first of all, the Elite have a little conference in the ring, and they're all like, he just literally cost us the match, guys. What is going on? Hangman grabs a beer from a fan, he takes off. The Bucks leave. Shivani is about to interview Kenny Omega when suddenly Pac appears on the trot. Pac has hijacked an interview segment a little bit later on, I suppose, in the show, but he's hijacked it early with Riho. The interview is there, Pac tells her to go away, and basically Pac threatens to beat up Riho. Kenny Omega says, what are your terms? What do you want? Stop doing this. And Pac went, you know what I want? I want my rematch with you. And Omega says, fine, you've got it. Please don't hurt her. And Pac says, I wouldn't lay my hands on a woman. I'm not a beast. But she is. Pac walks off. Nyla Rose comes out from a curtain in the back and just waylays Riho, puts her through a table, and says next week Riho belongs to her. Overall, this whole thing gets an A-. I found the match very fast-paced, very entertaining, but with nice little touches of storytelling sprinkled in as well, like every segment involving Hangman Page these days. On the minus side, we had that weird timing spot with the pinfall stopping at 2 for no real reason, and also with the segment with Pac backstage, I wonder if it maybe made Riho, who is of course the women's champion, look a little bit like a damsel in distress, and I don't know if that's a very good look. But apart from that, this segment was really good and packed full of good storytelling. Next up, a very personal match. Oh, it's going to kick off because it's a tale of 2 lovers, ex-lover. It's a tale of 1 lover and his lover's ex-lover. It's Kip Sabian versus Joey Janela. What am I doing? They brawl straight away. Janela's really taking it to him because he's the It's what it should have been. I mean, you know, I'm glad that they started brawling pretty soon after the bell. Janela is really fired up for this one. At one point, he's sat on the canvas and Kip Sabian kicks him right in the spine and Janela just no-sells it. Obviously, if he no-sold moves all the time, it would be silly, but in little occasions like this, when the situation calls for it, it can be very effective. And I laughed. I thought it was great. Sabian goes for another one. Janela braces himself again, and Sabian just clamps on a rest hold, which is Randy Orton heel work at its finest. But of course, Penelope Ford's on the outside to try and tilt the match, the balance of the match, in the favour of Kip Sabian, and she does so at one point with Janela on the outside and the referee's back turned, and she just bashes Joey's head into the ring steps. The match develops into a pretty back and forth one. It's looking pretty even between the 2 wrestlers until Janela just crushes Kip Sabian with a very nice Death Valley driver in the middle of the ring, but Kip Sabian kicks out. And then Sabian's energy, his health, is replenished thanks to the power of love, just as Back to the Future taught us, because Penelope Ford gives him a lovely kiss through the ropes and he turns and moves out the way, and Janela hits Penelope Ford. She falls off the ring apron and it looks like she's tweaked her knee on the outside. Oh, the old Lana special, is it? With Janela distracted by what he's just done, Sabian rolls him up, handful of tights, 1, 2, 3, Kip Sabian wins and helps Penelope Ford to the back. Oh, you'll get yours, Sabian. You'll get your... I don't know what I'm doing. He probably won't. He might win the feud. I don't know. Who knows how it's going to go. This gets a B+. At first, I was worried that this storyline, when I learned about the people involved and everything, I thought, oh no, they're going to rely on so many old cliches and tropes and it's going to be a bit stupid. But I think it's really been backed up by very good, solid wrestling. So this gets a B+, and I am excited to see where it goes forwards as a bit of an undercard feud. Before the main segment, we do have a few things to run through, which aren't big enough to give an individual grade to, but a few little backstage segments, pretty much just to hype next week's show and the weeks beyond that leading up to the pay-per-view. So, first of all, Jericho and Santana rant backstage about how disgusting Moxley is for trying to blind Santana, even though Jericho himself tried to blind Moxley. And Santana challenges Moxley for next week. That's a match that's going to happen. Also, in 3 weeks' time, Kenny Omega versus Pac's rematch is official, and it's going to be a 30-minute Iron Man match. Ooh. And finally, the Young Bucks argue with Hangman Page about losing the match for them. I think it's Matt Jackson who says, you need to work. What's your problem? Actually, I think I know what your problem is. And he takes the beer out of Hangman's hands and the Bucks saunter off. And then Hangman, from below the camera, just lifts up a whole pitcher of beer and takes a sip. To big cheers from the crowd. You're enabling him, he's only going to turn heel faster. And finally, the main segment, Cody Rhodes taking his 10 lashes from MJF as per one of the stipulations, leading up to, hopefully, their match at the pay-per-view. And this segment, man, it was just 10 lashes. There were no real bells and whistles to this. I mean, there were in terms of people coming out to support Cody or heels coming out to jeer him from the ramp. But in terms of actual in-ring action, in-ring stuff that happened, it was just 10 lashes, but it was a very compelling performance. So MJF's really taking his time with these lashes slowly, and Cody's he barely sells the first one, but then the next few he starts selling a little bit more, and a little bit more, and eventually he's falling to the canvas after every lash from the belt. So people gradually come out to support Cody. You know, some heels are on the ramp, like to watch him fail, I suppose, and give up. But faces come out to help him along. Arn Anderson, Dustin Rhodes, Brandy Rhodes before the final one as well, which is interesting given her current heel position in the Nightmare Collective. MJF gives one of his lashes to Wardlow, who just laces Cody right in the back, and there are some nasty welts on Cody's back that develop throughout this segment, and even a bit of blood towards the end too. It looks really painful. And in the end, Cody does do it. After loads of selling and loads of pain, he does manage to do it. He takes the 10 lashes, fulfilling his stipulation. So MJF boots him down low and runs away, up into the bleachers. He's chased by a couple of babyfaces. I think it was the Best Friends, and I think one of them starts brawling with Wardlow towards the end of the segment. Unless it was a fan, I really don't know what that was about. I couldn't make out who it was at all just before the show went off the air. But the whole takeaway of this is that Cody's done it. He's taken his 10 lashes. He's got the cage match with Wardlow as well. And if he can keep his hands off MJF until the match itself, then he does finally get his hands on his nemesis. I didn't know what to give this segment because it was grueling and it was long and it was very slow paced, but it was effective and it was emotionally sold by everyone involved, whether they were heel or babyface, and the commentary team as well. And the crowd reacted well to it too. So I'm going to give it an A- grade. I thought it was good. I thought it was different and it was very old school. We're used to somehow the babyface turning the tables or something, or maybe the Andy being up somehow, but it was just pretty by the book, and I wasn't used to that. We're not really used to seeing that in modern wrestling, but it was pretty compelling. In a way, it progressed a bit like a wrestling match, with Cody, barely flinching at the start. He's in control, and then gradually the heel wears the babyface down, and then by the end, the babyface fires up with the help of the crowd and his allies, and wins, takes the 10 lashes, and then the heel, after the bell, as it were, hits him low and runs away. It was like a wrestling match, but in totally segment form. So a strange one to end the show, but what am I giving it overall? I'm going to give this week's AEW Dynamite an A- grade. Very lovely stuff. I thought that even though not all of the segments were of A- quality or above, I thought that the consistency of the show was really telling. And not just that, this isn't just a grade for this week's Dynamite. It's also because they've done a really good job of sowing the seeds and developing storylines and growing everything at a different rate so that it all builds towards that pay-per-view, which is something that WWE sometimes do well, but sometimes really seem to forget about. And I think the contrast here is very apparent. AEW have done marvelously when it comes to building towards pay-per-views. I feel like I've been harsh to NXT there. They're very good at doing so as well. But this week's Dynamite gets an A- grade. Long may it continue. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.